Right. Good morning. For the record, could I have your name, please?
Subra Panjachar.
Okay, could I have your contact number, please?
012-244-1577. 77.
All right. Before we begin the interview, just to make sure that you've read the declaration and you've consented to this interview, and you're aware that at any time you may skip whatever questions that you may feel that you probably do not want to answer, and so on.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start with the interview.
Okay.
All right. In your opinion, what makes a good teacher?
Many things that are required to make a good teacher, but first thing I'll think about is trying to understand your class, what their capabilities are, where they come from, and what their expectations are.
Right. Sorry, before that, may I know what class you're teaching and the level of your students?
Oh, I'm teaching A-level classes. These are pre-U classes.
So basically, these are SPM leavers?
Yeah, they're school leavers. They just finished SPM. Or O-levels, one of those.
So you mentioned just now that one of the most important trait that a teacher should have is understanding the class and understand the expectations of the students.
Correct.
So how would you assess those expectations? How would you determine what is expected of them?
Well, first thing is on the first day itself, you try to make conversation with them. And once they are free of the inhibitions, then they'll start speaking freely. And then you can ask them very pointed questions. What do they want to become? What their expectations are? It'll take about 2 or 3 weeks, but within a month you will know what the expectations are and what each student is, where his level is, what he's capable of.
All right. So what do you think, in your opinion, the qualities that a teacher must have, the sort of qualities that the teacher should exhibit in front of their students?
Okay. Firstly, patience. Patience. And they must also understand that this patience doesn't last long. There's a limit to it. And number 2, they must know that you are being a professional in class. You're just not pandering to their needs. There's a balance between what you want to give them and what they expect.
So you mentioned that you have to strike a balance between their expectations and also what you, as a teacher, expect from them. So what happens if those expectations are, if say for example, the students' expectations are a bit more harder to achieve or things like that? What would you do?
It's quite simple. The thing is how we talk to them. The main thing is how we talk to them. Like I said, within a month you know whether a student can perform or not. And there may be students who want to become engineers, but they have very poor ability in mathematics. And then you have to tell them in a very mild manner initially that this might not be suitable. Then slowly you bring up the topic, but never put it up front to him that he's not good. You may tell him once in a while in talking that he may think of other options.
Mm-hmm.
But never tell him pointedly up front, okay, this program is not suitable for you, please get out.
Okay. So are there any other qualities that a teacher should have besides, being a professional, having patience and
Yeah, like I said, there's always talk about passion for teaching.
passion?
Right? A teacher should not come in just to make his salary. There should be a reason behind it, a philosophy behind it. For example, the college that I studied in, it normally takes in average students and below average students. They don't go for the very, like I said, so this IQ and so on. But end of the 4 years they study there, you find they have changed. And many of them have become, quite well known in their own fields.
Okay.
So that is my philosophy also. Right? I rather work with the average student, right, and bring him up rather than go to a class where there are already good students. Yeah, it doesn't make any difference what you do. I really want to make a difference in my class.
Okay.
That is my philosophy. A teacher should have that philosophy.
The philosophy of making a difference.
Making a difference to the students' lives.
Just now you mentioned about patience.
Yeah.
How do you strike a balance between patience and being stern or firm with your decisions or whatever that you have?
For example, you teach them something in class. First time the student asks you again, you can be patient. You can answer again. Second time he asks you also, you can answer the same question. But the third time he asks you, you know that he's not listening or he's not taking it in, just goes by him. So at that point, you need to be a bit stern. And then you can only give him half the answer, not the full answer.
Okay.
The guy will realize that, he's being pushed back. And then he'll start learning on his own.
Okay. All right. Are there any other qualities that comes to your mind? Okay.
One
besides.
point that, this is what I do in class. I never answer directly. When a student asks me something, I always put back another question to that person. And what I believe is that this will make him think. So you want students to think. So that is another quality of a teacher. Make the student think, rather than just giving him answers like a tuition teacher.
All right. So would you say that, say for example, if you were flexible, most of the qualities that you mentioned are basically more emotional in a sense.
Yeah.
How about in terms of organization, in terms of being flexible, in terms of being, say for example, as I mentioned, more organized. So do you think that is a good quality that a teacher should have?
Yeah, because in a class you have this whole mix of students with different capabilities, different attitudes. So you need to be flexible. Let's say you set a timetable and you say that the paper must come in on the 1st of June. Half of them are going to come in. All right? So you be a bit flexible. Again, it depends on the students. Some students have valid reasons. We just cannot cut it off. So you take all this into consideration. But if you see a repetition of the same thing, like passing up late, then you put a stop to it. I said, each student is an individual. You have to treat them individually. It cannot be a group thing there. Each student is treated as he is.
As he is.
Yeah. And we don't have very big classes, 20, 30 students only. So immediately when a student says, okay, I don't know this, he's lying or he's telling the truth.
So you mentioned that you have to treat each student individually.
Correct.
So do you think that it's important to have a good relationship? Is it important to have not say good relationship, but have a sort of a strong relationship with each individual student?
Yeah, as much as possible I try to do that. But there are some who will never mix with you. These are the loners. And you will find that at the end of the day, they don't mix with the other class members also. And they always end up at the losing end.
So how do you get them to mix? How do you get them to, discuss or?
One way is group discussion. You give them a problem, and you break up the group as you want, not as they want. So you mix them all up together. But sometimes even this won't work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, there's a time when you can help them and a time you know you cannot help them. And a lecturer should know that.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot be going on, doing it over and over again, trying to help that person. So at that point, you just push it off. You don't try too hard. You try, but not that hard, because you know it's not going to work.
So this particular students that are, any other things that you do if it doesn't work, is there anything else that you probably
I do talk to them individually why they are like that, and some will answer. Most of them have some family things there. Right? For example, I found out that there are some who just they come into class, they'll keep on talking, cannot stop talking, and then when you talk to them, you find out they don't do any talking at home. So about 18 hours they don't do any talking at home. So when they come to college, there's the only place for them to pour out their feelings and talk to their friends. And then there are others, like I said, basically all this has got some family background there.
True.
And that is the reason why they behave as they do in class.
Is there any particular student that you like to point out, in a sense that probably you could provide an example of how you manage this particular student, brought him out of his cocoon?
There's one student, he's now in my class right now, and you find that he's a very nice, well-behaved student, but his parents treat him very badly. They expect him, he lives in Sungai Buloh. So to come from his house to the main road, he needs his parents' help. They need to give him a lift. So they use a sort of a blackmail that he has to wake up at 5 o'clock, iron the parents' clothes and all these kind of things. He forgets one day or so, they won't transport him to the main road. He has to walk 2 kilometers. So you can see that that student is a bit depressed, stressed out. Right? So called him up and talked to him and asked him the reason, and he told me all the reasons. And then I said, okay, there's nothing much you can do because you live in your parents' house, you're not earning on your own. So there are ways of getting out of it. Just take it as a extra homework, that's all, rather than thinking of it as a punishment. And then in 2 years, 3 years' time, you're going to come out from your house. You're going to start earning. So just take it, that's it. Nothing much else you can do. So that's the way we talk. I mean, now he's very friendly already. And he's a very good student, actually very smart. But this depression pulls him down.
Okay. So do you set, for example, do you have high expectations for your students? Do you see that as a good quality of a teacher?
Well, I always tell my students, you aim for the sky, you reach the treetop. You aim for the treetop, you're going to reach the root only.
Okay.
I've seen this too many times. The so-called smart students, they set A's and so on, when they don't reach it. And there are others who come in with C's, and they set very high standards for themselves, and they achieve it. So if we don't set those high standards for them, they'll never change.
So do you set those expectations?
Yes, I do. Very high expectations from them.
Okay.
All right.
So it's not them who set their own expectations?
At this level cannot. They have their expectations, but like I said, I have my own. This is what I want them to become. So I do not pull down my expectation. Based on the expectation, I know how to manipulate them to come up with the higher expectations that I want.
Okay.